hello, hello, good evening, good morning, good night, whatever part of the globe you are. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Let's Get Talking. And we're not going to ignore the red flags. And red flags are not just for relationships, that's male and female. Red flags is also in the workplace. Red flags are in parent and children relationships. And today we are talking about the impact of parenting on our youth part two. We are just following up from last week's program. So again, we have my co-host, Pastor Daniel George. We have Miss Keisha George, and we have Pastor Clive Dottin, famous Pastor Clive Dottin. So welcome, welcome guests, welcome back to the panel, welcome back to our channel. And we're going to start right off with Pastor Clive Dutton this evening. Pastor Clive Dutton, share some information and then we will start asking some questions after.
Okay. I was talking backstage in terms of the parent and the adolescent. That is the biggest in parenting today. I would say this. I don't know what Sister Keisha's experience, and she'll have a chance to share. But most of the homes that have serious problems is a parent-adolescent issue. Now, I'm seeing some homes with parents and juniors. When I say juniors, I don't want just real adolescents, the 10, the 11, the 12-year-old, not yet into puberty and that kind of thing. So the first problem I want to say is that a lot of problems stem from poor modeling. All right, you're talking a value, but you're living opposite to the value. All right, I want that to sink in. You're talking about a value, but you're not going in line with that value, so that your lifestyle doesn't match your words. Do as I say, but not as I do. That goes to drinking, smoking. That goes to unfortunate relationships with people outside of the marriage, infidelity, a lack of decency, poor dress, that kind of thing. So the modeling is missing. If you ask me what is a major challenge in this society, and I agree with the Prime Minister, parenting is a big issue, but the modeling part is where you collapse wholeheartedly. All right, that is number one. Number two, establishing clearly defined boundaries. You brought an issue up before we went on officially about people coming in the car, not saying good evening. All right, seeing that as old-fashioned. If I feel to talk to you, I am bound to talk to you. You know the Trini style. All right, me am bound to talk to you. I know you nothing, you ain't owe me nothing. I don't know you, you ain't know me. I owe you nothing, you owe me nothing. And you hear that? You hear that? You know that kind of thing.
Yep.
So you need clearly established boundaries. And the third one is where I think the skill set comes in. One of your questions there. The issue of how to supervise a teenager, how to supervise an adolescent. All right? Do I have to be extremely harsh? Do I have to be extremely lax? Should I say, well, the child will grow out of it? You ever hear that? I mean, it's looking at in your face and challenge. And you're talking about the child will grow out of it. You have no evidence of that really. He might grow out of it and become worse. Okay? And at the same time, and I mentioned earlier on before we gave way to the introduction, and I want to say this, parenting, according to fellows like Blankenhorn and the Johns Hopkins University Ivy League School, all right, they are saying now that parenting is no longer defined biologically. And all this gender warfare and twists and turns, yeah, you know, is a real, you can't even say burden now, you understand? That's a problem. The postmodern agendarists don't want to hear about that at all. But young people today, and some experts are defining parenting by a term called caring. And that is dangerous because a person may appear to care for you, give you what you want, but the main goal is to exploit you. All right?
True.
And that is what I want to start off with today. So Keisha, over to you.
Right. So just to add and to your list, Pastor Dutton, is the fact of absent parent. Because a lot of times, parents think that, as long as the children they have food, they have a place to safe, they have clothes to put on their back, that they are parenting well. But however, when we look at it, they are basically just generally meeting the basic needs of these children. And when in return, parenting is a much more in-depth, committed relationship. It is a much more, when I say a much more in-depth, committed relationship, and I pointed out absent parent because spending time, meaningful time with your children is very, very important. Being able to interact with them, being able, to allow them to communicate with you and open up to you effectively and not going to a stranger, being there for them, right?
Mm.
So, and today, we will see that parents, mostly they will interact with these children, probably to correct them or to order them, to do this, to do that. But is it spending meaningful time with these children? So taking time to show them the love, have fun with them, like spend the afternoon with them, or when you're home on a weekend, you have a little, games, or however it is, just to have that, togetherness, that closeness, to allow them to understand that, listen, my parent is there. My parent is there. They are there for me. I can, regardless of what they are there, I can connect with them. I can communicate with them. And I think that spending the needed time, it is very rare today. It is very, very rare with our children.
I agree.
Keisha, I want to just come in here, if you don't mind. I agree with you
So,
totally. Do you think that the issue of time management skills is important for parenting these days in terms of how they plan for the family? Do you think it's critical?
yes, yeah, I would say that. Yes, it is. It is. Because oftentimes, we focus on get the job, doing this and doing that. And most time, we leaving our children at the back burner. Because all we are focusing on is, okay, I have to provide, I have to provide. And it seems that they're so busy that they don't have the time. Sometimes you will hear them complaining, I'm so tired, I don't have the time to do this and I don't have the time to that. So yes, I agree with you, Pastor, that in time management, it is very, very pertinent.
Okay. You know, I when you mentioned that just now, I was simply amazed because it is, to my mind, the skill set that Sister Hazel mentioned. One of the skill sets, parents have to know how to manage their own time before they can help the children manage their time. For example, TV versus parent. How much time is a
Mhm.
child on the TV, social media? And by the way, there's a high tech area. There's technology time. Whether we like it or not, technology time has
Yeah,
arrived. It's a
that's
simple.
taking over.
So that, yes, and whether or not you want to be part of that. And I tell parents all the time, you don't have to be a high tech guru like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and them, but at least you could understand the basics. Somebody posted me, a young person last on a message. I was asking him a question and said, BRB, be right back. You know what I mean? And that came about 4 hours after. That is how they see time. They're not studying your time, they're studying their time and where you are in terms of importance. Another topic I find is missing between parents and adolescents is career choices. Parents mustn't try to ram down the throat of their teenagers and adolescents what they want them to be or what they see they have talents for. Let the child decide the career of his choice, his or her choice. That, to my mind, is awesome. Let the child determine, all right, with your guidance, of course, and as a skill set, how to
That's
listen
right.
versus how to dictate. Now,
Mhm.
to be honest with you, I find in homes today, is either the parents over involved and trying to make decisions for the child, or they don't care a hoot. Let the teacher do that, let the neighbor do that, let the boyfriend or girlfriend do that. That, to my mind, is an awesome responsibility in terms of the skill set. How do you guide rather than dictate to? And when do you draw a line back to boundaries now and say enough is enough? One grandparent called me recently. I talking about 3 weeks ago, and said that his grandchild is going to bed like 3 in the morning, from 9 till 3, on the phone. All right, video games, talking with whoever they're talking to 9 to 3. And I told them, I told the grandfather, where are the parents? Where's the mother? Where's the father? Why do you at age 74, that's the age of the grandfather, why are you at age 74 having to take on that responsibility? That is too much for you.
Exactly. That's right.
And therefore, well, they called me back recently. I gave some advice and they said they've seen some changes. But what I could never get from the grandparents or the parents is, who is that child spending time with like that? There's a Form 5 child who is taking exams, a Form 5 child. And therefore, don't wait to brutalize the child when the results come out and the child does poorly. Now, this is where I have a problem with parenting in the 21st century. Most parents do not nab it early enough. And when the results of the child's poor time management come, they want to kill the child. When in actual fact, the parent should take some responsibility. I told that parent, if this child is in Form 5, when it's 10 o'clock in the night, that child should be asleep. Because what is going to happen, the child is going to become emotional dysfunctional. And you know what sociologists say? When you waste your emotions like that, there comes a time when you reach like marriageable age and stuff, you damage the selective process. And I want parents to understand that there is something the sociologists call the selective process, making of choices. And when the child is so stressed out, sleeping during class because going to bed too late, you understand? Some children feel made out of iron, and therefore they don't have to have much time to sleep. That will not impact upon them in later life. And we have to be showing them that that is a serious thing. And then you don't know who they're communicating with. It could be a guy much older than the girl. The son could be communicating with a young lady out there that is not influencing him in any right way, because I may be old-fashioned, but clearly, if you're up 3 o'clock in the morning on the phone with someone, that is not nice stuff they're talking about. All right, that stuff to my mind of a nature that could lead you to become dysfunctional. And remember, I'm talking about a Form 5 student who needs all the energy in preparing for the exam, who needs to be properly rested. And I find today that teenagers don't understand the value of night rest. They don't understand the value of night rest because of where technology is driving them. And I am saying to parents tonight and other caregivers, do not take your child's health for granted, okay? And say young, he's strong, he's invincible. Don't play into that narrative, because the people who want to destroy your child, they're pushing that narrative. And if you play into that narrative, you could end up with a totally dysfunctional child, especially emotionally and psychologically.
Yeah, and just to add to that, and this often happens because parents themselves, they tend to assume that children understand their expectations. So parents often, they themselves forget to enforce, these rules occasionally. So basically, you're telling the child, okay, you need to go to your bed, don't be all that. But are you really enforcing it? Right? Do you really think that these children understand what are your expectations? And with technology now, it is draining them mentally. It is draining them mentally because all they are focusing on is to be online, is to play this game, and leaving the books behind, leaving what needs to be done behind. And most times, as parents, it has become the easiest option, just to keep them out of our hair or give us the space, to leave them on the tablet, leave them on the phone, so you yourself could get that breathing space, but we don't understand the impact it have on our children.
That's right. I personally know of a child that the mother, from age 2 coming up, the mother keeps pushing the phone in the child's hand. And if you hear that child speak, you would honestly believe that child was born and raised in the USA. The child's accent is totally everything that the child has
Foreign.
been hearing. Yeah, totally foreign. Yeah, there's nothing about that child, and the child is living in a house with siblings, and that's just to show the amount of time that child is spending on that phone that it's as though to me the child doesn't even hear the mother or the father or the sister or the other, brother speaking because that child has clearly an American accent.
Hmm. That
Yeah,
that that is serious indeed.
yeah, because they adapt everything. They speak like them, they behave like them, they become disrespectful as them. So a lot of times from a tender age, you will see them answering the parent exactly how whatever they are looking at answering the parent. They want to dress the same way. They want to listen to the same type of music. So this is what, and we have to understand the negative impact that these technology and social media have on our children. But it's
That's
always
right.
quite easy for us to just push, the tablet or the phone on them, just for them to be quiet.
I
As
believe to Sister Hazel, and Sister Keisha and Brother George, Pastor George, what I see happening, all right, and it is something that we have to take great notice of, is how do we teach spiritual values to the child before the child is a teenager? Now, the modeling is critically important. Do we teach the child to pray? Now, I want to step in here. I did what? About 10 graduations. I normally do 15, but still recovering from COVID in schools. I did 10. Some didn't have no graduation at all. They had interfaith services. I did about 7 and 3. That's 10. But what I find is a lot of children are growing up in a godless space. Now, I feel that should not only bring concern to Pastor Daniel and myself, but everybody, you know, growing up in a godless space. I have met a lot this year, a lot of teenagers who haven't really said one prayer in their lives. They don't know what prayer is all about. They don't know what picking up the Bible and getting advice. Now, that's a skill, and it has to be taught by parents or pastors or somebody adult. You don't pick up that skill just so. I mean, how you go through the Bible, you use a thematic approach. You look at the issue of love throughout the Bible. You use a familiar approach. All right. You use a social context approach. All right. Do you look at a prophetic approach? In the last days, perilous time shall come. All right. Unthankful, unholy, disobedient to parents. That's right there. All right. Paul addressing Timothy. So that the issue of communicating spirituality to a child. You see, the world wants morality, right action, without spirituality, right relationship. So we think you hatch that somewhere, somehow out of a box, like a magician. You have that. So that I am saying, and I want to emphasize it tonight, a major challenge. And without that, you wouldn't have proper modeling. To have proper modeling, you have to have the issue of right relationship with God, the spirituality part. And I recall in Ireland when the Irish, the Irish always have a problem with the Catholics and the Protestants fighting. They have eased up on that now. But for years, I went to Ireland to a European camp, and I could tell you what I saw. I was amazed. They build the walls after the pavement. They don't have pavement and then the wall. Pastor, they have the pavement and then the wall. So the wall is on the street. And that was because of the violence. And the Archbishop of Dublin said something I was amazed. They were looking at the vote for gay marriage. All right. And Ireland, that is essentially called a religious society. All right. Won the vote. The gay marriage proponents won the vote. And the
wow.
Archbishop of Ireland said he was devastated. It was like a catastrophe upon his head. And he searched and he searched. He talked with some people like Sister Keisha and there, some psychologists, clinical psychologists and things. And they came up with one conclusion. They confuse church attendance with internalizing of spiritual values. So they felt once the child was here, the child was listening. All right. And he said we made a bad error there. He said the child was in church once a week, but for the rest of the days of the week, the child was listening to a contrary voice. That's it. That's the term he used, to a contrary voice. So I am saying we have to know it is not optional. It is compulsory. What are the voices influencing our child? And have we taught them enough spiritually to give them the coping skills to cope with godlessness out there. Because let's be frank, it's a godless society out there, you know. It's
That's
a
right.
godless society out there. And are we giving them, are we aggressive enough? Are we dynamic enough? Are we focused enough? Are we consistent enough? I would suggest to you that over 75% of our homes today, consistency in terms of mentoring is out. It is out. We are inconsistent. While the negative influences are very consistent with where they are going and where they are pushing. Look, let me put myself in trouble here. Look at Michelle Ahi. Michelle Lee Ahi, right? I mean, I don't know if you all know, but Michelle Lee Ahi is gay. He's
Yeah.
lesbian.
I know
And
that.
she has been charged, the big sports lady. And if I had a chance to tell her, say you wouldn't get a gold medal until you change your life. Michelle Lee, he was charged in an American court for abusing her wife. Could you
Yeah.
hear
My
that?
God.
But you know,
I'm aware of
abusing her
that.
wife. A lovely black girl abusing her wife. Now look. No, let me show you something. Somebody asked me, supposing Michelle Lee, he and her wife, in quotes, comes to Trinidad, what will happen there? Because we don't agree with that. Up to this point, praise God, the government is not going in that direction. Up to now, they're under pressure with the Rainbow Coalition, who love to assemble outside the U.S. Embassy. And you know why the U.S. Embassy? Because the U.S. posting their rainbow flag and stuff. Yeah, that's how you identify the society. And when America sneezes, we want to cough. So that this, what I am raising here, is vital. And you know, I see the church, Pastor Daniel, I see the church as coming out of the four walls and promoting in an active and almost, I don't want to say violent, but a very aggressive manner. You might say the word assertive manner, the values in this book, in the Bible. We need to do that. And we are not doing that enough. And we are and I don't about any specific church, Seventh-day, Pentecostal, Catholic, whatever. We are not doing, calling the church, whether it's mosque, whether it's temple, whether it's Roman, Catholic, Adventist, whatever, are talking about that. And by the way, when people are abusing our children in the church, we must take a stand against it. Don't matter how talented that the pianist is or the singer is. I think sometimes we have a law in the church for talented people, and we have a law for those who ain't showing us much talent. All right, and we give a blight to those who are in the pulpit and on stage singing and performing, and we kind of tough on the membership. We should expect more from pastors, Pastor Daniel, than we expect from members, because we are the ones to set the example, and we have to be aggressive, even how we preach. I am glad you folks of faith are having this program so the young people could hear some other voices that are strong, that have a sense of values. That is where we have to be.
You know, I just want to add something. You talk about the rainbow, yeah? On the streets of London, in
Yes.
some parts of London, the rainbow is painted. In late 2020, they painted the rainbow on the pavement, right? Especially at bus stops, they painted the rainbow. And if you're driving through or you're walking through your neighborhood in London, there are persons who, in their window, they would have either a picture of the rainbow or they would draw it like on a, like with color, what do you call it, markers or something, and they would
Yes.
stick it in their window. So that's to show their support for.
Identify. Yes.
Yep, Pastor George.
Yeah, well, a lot have been said, but I just want to backtrack a bit, on one of the comments that Pastor Dutton made when we were off set. Now, he spoke about boundaries not being set and that they should be set by the age of 7. Now, I know why he said that, but for the listening public, I would like him to say why he said
Okay.
8, 7, and not, thereafter.
Pastor Daniel, I'm amazed you raised that issue. I was in the Institute of Banking. We have an Institute of Banking here.
Yeah.
And Mr. White, who is the head of Royal Bank, they asked me to come and pray. And I was in for a shock because White had been listening to me for a long time, and I didn't know. So his remarks revolve around my positions on issues in the society. And then he came up with this thing that I was in sync with completely. I don't know if he got it from me or where he got it from. But in terms of clinical psychology, they said the father is God for the first 7 years, And if not the father, the mother is the goddess. In other words, the child in the first 7 years sees parents as possessing deity, as divine. And therefore, if we miss it in the first 7 years, we lose it. If we miss it, we lose it. Those first 7 years. What you find happening is that parents are very lax, like between the first 12 years. And when they see the results, I want to quote another fellow, Jack Dio, the sociologist from UE. I think he's retired now. But he made a remark after research that he was a social, not clinical, a social psychologist. And he said that parents, the research is showing that parents and adults communicate with children after, all right, when it's a trend over teenage, adolescent children, after a problem has surfaced. Now, let me give you an example of that. He's saying, all right, the child and the father and the mother ain't saying much to the child. The child on his own, the parents on their own. Hello, they might say a quick prayer if they have a prayer at all, breakfast, and they rush off to work, each on their own personal agenda. But he says, you know when that will change? If the girl gets pregnant, teenage pregnancy. If the boy, all right, is on ganja, smoking the weed and blasting his limbic system. I wish one night we talk about drugs alone, because I would love to share it on that topic.
Yeah.
But he was saying what is happening is that parents tend to step up their communication only after a problem has surfaced. Addiction, prostitution, that kind of thing, drugs, gang warfare. Then you're trying to, the horse bolt out of the stable long time. And by the way, we have to tell parents, there are 13-year-old and 14-year-old children in this country who are expert at guns already.
Amen.
I didn't say at weed, I say at guns.
Yeah.
They're expert, they're well taught, all right? And they feel excited about it, and they have that feeling of invincibility. So those first 7 years are critical. The brain is very pliable. It's like a sponge. It's absorbing stuff. And I'm quoting psychologists here, I'm not necessarily Christian psychologists. I'm quoting psychologists full stop. So you have to know, parents, the first 7 years are critical. If you wait too long after that, there are 7-year-olds into porn. Come on, 7-year-olds into pornography. All right, that is a fact. So that's what I'm saying. The first 7 years. So if mother and father are not living right, the child gets a twisted concept of God, who God is. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. So we agree that it's called the first 7 years is referred to as the formative years of the child.
Exactly.
The child's personality is shaped. But you also said something of tremendous significance as well, which I would like you to elaborate further on. Right? Now we talk about caring. And parents need to show care for their child. But what I've discovered from my dealing with young people is that we have two perspectives of caring. Perspective number one is the parent's perspective, and caring number two is the child's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of parent's perspective, boundaries are set. So you can say it's a boundary-oriented perspective in terms of, they want to make sure the child grow up in a place, so they set boundaries and all of that. But from the child perspective, caring means boundaryless. Boundaryless. He or she has a boundaryless perspective, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that. What I've observed now is that children tend to be very resentful to any constraint put on their behavior and so on. And they feel, mom, you don't like me, they don't care about me, they don't think they're always fussy, they never appreciate what I want to do and so on. But because the group that associate with, or the people that align themselves with, because they have grown up in environments where there was no boundaries, they feel that those are the people who really care for them, because they offer them a sense of belonging, a sense of validation, and the whole works that goes with it, that sort of thing. So the preference for children now is to be free to do what you want, carry on how you want. Nobody must put any limits on you, nobody must raise any objection, because to do that means that you don't really like them, you really don't care about them. I would like you to comment on that, whether you agree with it or not.
Well, what I find, you're correct, you're totally correct. The less boundaries you have, all right? Now, the thing what the child doesn't understand is if they cross a boundary out there with a drug dealer or the prostitution pimp, he's going to kill you. He's not going to have any patience with you because he doesn't have that biological connection. I am not sure we're doing enough. John Hopkins came out of the research about 5 years ago, and I didn't know. I'm not telling I didn't know. It's Pastor Ali from Alberta, Canada, who shared with me, and I dug up into it. You know, you have a lot of stepfathers now. Huh? A lot of homes have broken homes. All right. And by the way, hurt people hurt people. Huh? Could I say that again?
Yeah,
Hurt
yeah.
people. That's where
Yeah.
hurt is the adjective. Huh? Hurt people. The second hurt is a verb. So if
Yes.
you're hurt and you're broken, you are going to hurt other people. But John Hopkins came up with this. Let's say you have three families, three models, A, B, and C. A, mother and father. B, mother and stepfather. C, mother and no father at all. What did John Hopkins research shows, and David Blankenhorn, who is part of your fraternity, the evangelical perspective, is a brilliant guy, said, when it comes to the age of puberty is getting younger, I don't know if you all realize that. They say for several factors, all right? And it came to the parenting factor. He said when it comes to the researchers, to mother and stepfather and mother and no father, there's very little difference in the girl, especially, and the boy, it's developing puberty. All right. So that if you have proper parenting, puberty is delayed to the right time. If you don't have proper parenting, there's very little difference in mother and stepfather. All right. That model B and model C with no father at all. So that what you see as the child children becoming puberty being experienced by the child at a younger level. Now you're putting a lot of pressure on that child to cope with sexual temptation, for example, because if the child does not have, all right, that coping skill, all right, beyond his years, he's going to make several mistakes. You know, I talked to a gynecologist last week. I met him at the Republic Bank, and he said to me, Pastor, in this country, I have 2,000 teenage pregnancies every year. And a lot of them go to the hospital, and nobody's charged for statutory rape. So you have the legal dimension too, Sister Keisha. You have the legal dimension
Sad.
because nobody's arrested. And so that guy goes around impregnating other girls without having any sense of responsibility to take care of the children. So you have a
That's
lot of
right.
funded children in the society. When you look at gangs and prisons, you see a lot of that there.
Hmm. It's sad.
It is.
So one of the questions, which I think you touched on already, yes. Do you think that children of adolescent parents repeat the cycle?
Keisha, what do you think?
I would say yes.
Most
And
of the time.
I would say yes. I was reading this article earlier on today from the Urban Child Institute, right? And what they highlighted in it is that it shows that children who are born to adolescent mothers are more inclined to repeat their parents' behavior, right? And it also went further to report that they are more likely to drop out of school. They are more likely to incur health problems. They are more likely to face unemployment and become teen parents themselves.
Hmm.
So I would say yes.
I totally agree with you. In fact, you know, Sister Hazel, there's a challenge. The clinical psychologists are saying that those who get teenage mothers, all right, they chase after the phantom of their father's mismodeling. Now, let me break that down. Teenage parents chase after the phantom, the mirage, all right, of paternal mismodeling. That means they hate their father. They hate almost everything about him, how he treats the mother, how he has no sense of responsibility, how he's 30 and yet behaving worse than a 15-year-old. But they end up with a man just like the father. They
Mm.
chase after the phantom of the paternal mismodeling mirage, the illusion. They chase after that. And therefore, the skill set has to be for parenting at this delicate age of adolescence has to be an awareness. I tell parents they should be the best students. They don't have to go to school for that. The best readers.
Yeah,
You know,
true.
they must check on that because sometimes there's a phenomenon around you and you can't define it, you can't identify it. So you're shooting in the dark and you don't know where you're shooting. You don't even hitting a where you're missing there. And sometimes what has to happen is that you need to sit down with that child. And you touched the issue tonight, Sister Keish. You touched the issue, and you touched about spending quality time with the child. We cannot be so busy on the job, on church activities, that we have no time to spend with the child. You know what is bad, parents. I have a cousin, all right? He's a grandfather now, and he spends a lot of time in church, but the children are falling apart. They're broken children. Those are my second and third cousins, you know what I mean? And people ask the question, but he always in church. And then I came up with a conclusion that he needs to spend a little more time with his family and a little less time with the church. And I'm talking about church services and stuff, and taking care of responsibilities. And this is a tough thing to say, because if your family is not an example to the church, then your witness, all right, is having a challenge. Your witness is damaged. That's the word I'm searching for. So, Pastor, even with our churches and things, we have to remind parents to spend quality time with their children and not hide behind. Some people run from their home and get into the church. It's an escape route, It's an escape route. They're trying to get away from their home challenges.
Yeah. And I could agree with you 100%, because I can take my own self as an example. I did the balancing act, although I was not taught the balancing act per se, because I grew up in a home where my father didn't make much time for us, and my mom didn't know much about, those things that we attribute to be effective parenting. But because of the work of God in my life, and because again too, I guess one of the reasons maybe is because I was a single parent, it came down to the point that I had no other choice, and it has worked. We did a whole lot together. We did house shows together. We went to church together. We go out together. So we were always up in each other's face, so to speak, and integral part of each other. And I'm happy to, of course, giving glory to God as well, that it has worked out very, very well for me, because my children are now saying, that I have been a very good example to them. And when I commend them for anything, they say, who our father is, the chip hasn't fallen from the block. So I totally agree with you, You cannot sacrifice your family in the name of being involved in the work of the Lord. It does not make sense at all. And as you already say, your witness is compromised, your witness is tarnished, because how can you be there in everybody else's business and your business left undone? It just does not make sense at all. It's very difficult to reconcile, in the name of, well, you're doing God's business. So one has to be very mindful of that, And I want to make a point here, when I talk about balancing the scale, I do not necessarily mean, well, quarter of your time for God, quarter of your time for your children, quarter, but I'm talking from the perspective of the holistic development that was ascribed to Jesus, where he grew in favor with man, in favor with God, and so on, So we have kind of 4-dimensional development. What that means, we have put in God first, but at the same time making time for a child. That's how I wanted to define balance in your life,
I just want to say something here before Keisha comes in. My spiritual adopted son, he just got a girl pregnant when the child is born. That shook me to the core. When I tell you it shook me to the core, the girl is not even from here. It shook me to the core. Now, we have been through several, issues with him and relationship, what have you. He is past 30 now. And when that happened, and then the girl left here with the child, and he was busy, saying stuff about the child. And what I found terrible is that a lot of church people like him, so they were on his side. So I had to pull them up. I said, we know him, we don't know the girl too well, but you can't take a position that he's right and the girl is wrong. And he made claims that the girl didn't want to see the child and said he wasn't able to take care of the child. I said, well, if you're working, you can't take care of no child. All right. And the girl is right. If she's saying that, the girl is right. So that, sometimes in church, we have to be objective in terms of discipline and opinions that we state. All right. And I will tell you, when I did my survey, I gave the girl, you know, I saw her as more innocent in the whole process than the guy. Not because I feel the males must take all the responsibility when there's a mistake, but clearly he was not ready enough. I sat with him. We planned the wedding. He said we would have baptism the same day. All right, coming back, pops. He's coming, pops. I'm coming back, pops. I'm coming back strong. I say yes, but I say at the same time, it's not so much what you say, but by your actions, people will
Yes,
know you.
that's
And
right.
you can't want to preach down the place in the church, all right? And you're not living right, eye level with him. No, I can't even connect with the girl right now. I don't know exactly where she is in the South American mainland. And I find that a tragedy. And fellas going around with that situation and they're laughing and talking like nothing. And they don't have a child to think about and the impact on the child. And you know what, black males, we have to talk to them seriously about fatherlessness. And when they bring a child into the world, God, the great God of the omnipotent one,
Yeah.
expects a certain kind of conduct from them, in terms of how, because I say, look at the next thing. Suppose you marry this girl, you'll have a child outside of wedlock, and you go and marry somebody else. You know what I mean? Already we have a problem there. You're dividing in your loyalties. I have to show him all of that. And did the girl just pick up and start to say tough things about you? Or is she a hurt person? And this is where this thing statement came up again. Hurt people, hurt people.
Okay, teacher. Yes.
Before, but if you don't mind, Pastor, that I
Yeah.
don't think it's by accident, that you mentioned that you must teach our black male, or, well, in relationship to parenting and all of that. I think today I was having a conversation with somebody. I can't remember who it was. Probably could have been KEISHA. In terms of when you look at do some demographics, and from a statistic point of view,
Yes.
you realize that some people take objection to what I'm saying, but really we have been found wanted more than anybody else. We have been found, and not just in terms of parenting, even in achievement, academic achievements, and so on, And sometimes I'm inclined, really, because I've heard it said time and time that we are cursed, but I mean, obviously, I can't say that. I will not say that, But because when you see the degeneration, you understand that it's taken place, and we seem to be getting nowhere fast compared to the other ethnic groups. I just wonder what has gone wrong, So I don't know what you have to say about that.
Well, you have the trajectory of what people call the colonial antecedent. From way back from slavery, come right down to us here. But I am saying and I accuse the media. The media is not doing enough to highlight the positive black role models we have. Yes, they talk about Ajamu Crosby, but let me talk about Ajamu Crosby. In 2016, Keisha should remember, he won the CAPE exam. He's from Beetham Gardens. He went to UE and he's unemployed right now
Mhm.
at age 24. That boy should never be unemployed. It's a failure, a systemic failure of our leadership. That here you have a guy, when he did well from Beetham, you clap him. Good boy, doing well, doing good, great role model. But today he's unemployed. You're tempting him to go into a life that is negative. He has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and he's employed. He has written a book, he's an author, but he's unemployed. That guy is begging me, Pastor, tell me how, help me get a job. So we have to be engaged in that right now. But I am saying it's a failure of our black leadership when a boy like a Jamu Crosby growing up in Beetham and can't find a job with all the qualifications he has.
I just wanna um touch on something for a minute. Going back to the peer the priorities of family before ministry. If I'm correct, there are a few scriptures in the that we can touch on in the Bible. Um, Probably not touching on them now, but there are a few scriptures in the Bible that indicates that family life comes first before ministry. Yeah, and if I'm wrong, correct me. But touching on Ajamu, he was on a platform last Friday, and he was sharing his testimony really, and that he's unemployed and things like that. And I was
Yeah,
like, Yeah, so I agree with what you're saying, and I don't think that he should be unemployed because someone should be able to reach out there and okay. I mean, he shed light out of the darkness, so to speak, right? He comes as light coming out of darkness. So then why isn't anyone stretching out their hand and say, okay, I want this young man. Let me give this young man a fair chance. Yeah.
Listen, let me say this before anybody else comes in. And let's talk straight because I feel I'm comfortable with you all. That would hardly happen with an Indian child or a Syrian child or a Chinese child. Hardly. And you see, it is not an issue. I tell folks, like Adamu tell me recently, say, Pastor, you're a PRO of the Martin Club. I want to come and talk to them. All right? As you're seeking to help me out with that. I want to come and talk to them. So that there are creative ways you could use this. Should this young man's talent in mechanical engineering just go to waste? How much longer he has to wait? And every time I go on a program, I promote him. Because I feel, it is not yet complete. The society is not rewarding this boy enough. All right? I mean, when the Express asked him, Ajamu, how you handle Saturday nights in the beat town? Let me tell you something about the beat town on Saturday nights. There's a lot of stuff going on. Fellas trying out their guns. The military academy, the underground military academy is doing their training and stuff. And the Express asked him how he handling that. He said, but I had a love for my mother. My father worked on my mother. I mean, how many times you have heard that? My father worked on my mother. My sister is now a microbiologist. I am a mechanical engineer. I'm not yet employed. But he says, I listen to my mother. She has boundaries in the home. That's the power of boundaries. Huh? And I cooperated and I love my mother and I won't do anything to hurt her. You know this young man saying? You tell me this, that young man unemployed? No, man. No. Something wrong.
True. I just want to take this time to welcome our listeners, each and every one of you, those of you that are commenting, those of you who are hiding behind the privacy screen. Welcome, new listeners, welcome, returning listeners. Feel free to, please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we'll try to answer them as much to the best of our ability, please. Thank you in advance. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's Keisha's turn now.
Yes. So what I wanted to add, to when we were previously discussing the fact of being too much involved in the church and not taking the time to spend time with our home and our children, and this is something that is blatant, and especially being, a part, of mentorship programs in the church. And, when you sit down and you listen to these young people, and they would be like, because you're giving them that free space so they can open up, so they can communicate with you. And they will say things that, I want to learn to do this and I want to learn to do that. And, they will say, well, my mommy will say they don't have the time and they don't have the time to do this and they don't have the time to do that, right? And it's like they are just in a world all on their own, right? And they will say things like, okay, miss, everything, is just come home and we have a structured approach and mommy will always every time or mommy and daddy every time church call they will run and they will leave us and today I don't even know basic things how to do this and how to do that as a young lady and as a young man, right? And this to me it opens an avenue, it opens a door for our children to step out and to go elsewhere and to grasp love and affection elsewhere because, we're not taking the time, to spend time with our children, not taking the time, to incorporate our children, in our daily activities and know that, listen, you all, at the center, I am here for you all and not just, leaving them putting them on a back burner, or so to say. And it is at times it is really, really heart-wrenching because some of these children, and some of them, they are teenagers, they are young adults, and they are so unhappy. They are so unhappy. And when you really get into conversation with them and they get that free space to open up and they let they say, I don't even spend quality time with my parents. I don't even feel, that love and that affection. So it is there. It is there.
And that brings us, sorry, go ahead.
Sister Hazel, the point you mentioned there is what is now called attachment emotionally. A lot of children have no attachment for their parents. It's like the parents don't exist. They sleeping in the same home. And by the way, eating together is that strength of the Chinese population. You know, they said in terms of China's strength in the world economy, there are two things that are important with, all right, around the family. Fellowshipping and eating together is compulsory. I find our black population is not compulsory. We hardly have time to sit down and eat with our children and fellowship and pray with them. So attachment. And there are two other factors. It's a commitment and involvement. Commitment is where you're willing to sacrifice for your child, and the child knows that. You're willing to go through pain for your child. You're willing to put off other things that's supposed to be important for your child. And the other area is involvement. Involvement in positive activities, in hobbies, and that kind of a stuff. In our culture, we hardly have fathers taking out their children on a social, taking out their children is a gang leader. With the girls is a prostitutionary pimp. Recreation is provided by the outsider. And we have to check on that. Somebody asked me, what is the, apart from spirituality, what's the big thing you want to look at? And I tell him the big thing is spending time in a recreational domain with our children. Because if other people are doing it, they would love the others, and they will get to a point where they dislike us. They see us as not necessary. Imagine that. Huh? Imagine if a child tells you, you're not necessary in my life. You're not making a difference in my life. I mean, that has to be the most hurtful thing a child could say, Sister Hazel.
Yeah, definitely. And these are factors that contribute to, ineffective parenting, contributes to, the absenteeism of parents. And, it contributes to the adverse childhood experiences that causes trauma. Yeah, for instance, a parent may be incarcerated, sexual abuse, different types of abuse, death of a parent, there's a lot of factors that contribute to the adolescent parenthood. And we have Patsy King Roach in the comments. She's saying that her little boy is 3 years old, and he always wants to learn to cook and wash everything. He asks if she can teach him, and that's very good.
Sure.
That's very good.
Sure.
Yes. Yes, because and I just want to add to that, I have a 7-year-old son, and I strongly believe that, once you model positive behavior to your children, you're gonna see it come out. You're gonna see it because they are looking. They are always looking. Sometimes you think they are not. They are looking. And just last week, I sat on the chair, and I was on my laptop getting some work done, and I am here in the kitchen sink. So I was like, what is he doing? And he's standing there and he's washing the dishes and cleaning down the counter. And when he finished, he take the broom and he passed the broom. And to me, that it felt so, because to see that, I have never told him, listen, do this, do that. I will always get up and do everything, and he got up and he'd do this. And then he was like, Mommy, how do you think I did? I did a good job, and sometimes it is just one that reassurance, that, they did a good job, and you congratulate them, and, they were going to continue. They're going to continue. Compliment them for the simplest thing, the smallest thing, compliment them, motivate them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And even if they don't do it, as you want them to do it, or they don't do it as good, you just still compliment them, you still tell them good job, and that is going to give them, the push and the power, to get up and continue doing it. Because, as Pastor Dottin says, from 1 to 7, you see that age bracket there, it is very, very imperative. And if we don't catch that age bracket, listen, we are in problems. Yeah, we're setting up ourselves for disaster.
They say even for learning of languages, that first 7 years are critical. It becomes progressively difficult after that. I want to show you something. I went to Holland. I was a guest of the church there. And the young people that love me so much, they gave me a trip to Germany. All right. Well, the pastor had to drive me over. And what happened? It was so significant. We got lost in Germany. Because he had come to Germany before, but he couldn't remember. In the end, we ended up in a restaurant to have lunch, and I watched a Chinese waiter Number one, he was young. When I tell you young, I mean young. Number two, he was trilingual, 3 languages. He was switching to English for us, to Chinese for other Chinese workers, and Germany for the white Germans who came in there. And I said, but the Chinese have to rule this world eventually? Because when a child like that, a boy like that could be trilingual and fluent in the 3 languages. And I am saying, as you know, in the Black culture, we have to become more involved in our children's life, more involved in, setting parameters for them and helping them to set goals. Well, helping them to set goals. So they're setting the goal, but we're helping them. We don't have to set the goal for them, but we're helping them to set goals and showing them what is important. And I was amazed by that. When I went in the hotel now, guess what hotel it is? It's a Chinese hotel. So here you have a society that has prepared, an option, a menu list of career options. He wouldn't stay a waiter for the rest of his life. He will become some translator in some big multilingual company. That is where he will go. And if he works in the night, I wouldn't be surprised after he gets his big job. That same Chinese guy in Cone Street there in Germany. So I am saying, as we continue this conversation, we have to highlight in our churches, particularly, the role of parents in the guidance and supervision of the adolescent's life. We have to be more, have greater intentionality on it.
Definitely.
I agree. Yeah, as Dottin was talking, I remember those days when I would sit down and say, "Come, let's plan for the next week. Let's plan for the next month. This is our resources here. What you think." And although I used to tell them, well, if we have a deadlock, I have the last say. But I allow them to be able to, plan, learn the art of planning, take a sense of responsibility. Let them know their opinion matter. They have a voice. And so we have to say basically we grew up together. I think fortunately in the context of the formative years, right? The eldest one was 9, but the rest one was 7. So that gave me that advantage, to make the kind of meaningful input in their lives, And one of the things I was very about is allowing them to stay by any and anybody, because my concern was that I do not want what I'm trying to cultivate in them
exactly
in their mind, by anybody who will be on the same page with me, and so on, have the same perspective of parenting. And we sort very, very guarded with that, I remember my brother, he, we lived in close proximity, and my children used to visit his, meet their cousins and spend time with them. And I remember I went at his home. He was at work, and his wife, siblings, they came and they were playing a lot of dub music, and there were a lot of obscenity and lewdness in the music. And I said to my kids, I said, see, that is a bad environment to be in. So I stopped them from going there, and my relative took issues with that, but I said that I cannot afford for 1 minute, to be working so hard, and I say working hard in terms of my effort to bring up my children in the fear and in the nurture of the Lord.
Right.
On the other hand, right, on doing what I'm doing, right, allowing them, giving them permission to go in an environment will do just the opposite of what I was trying to do, So
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, it is important. Yeah, of course. I never made joke by that at all. As a matter of fact, I had close friends who my children would go by, believers in Christ, but they dare not make any decision with my children and say, well, I'm going to take you to the mall and then come and tell me after, we have decided thing. So I say, first discuss it with me, get my opinion. So if I disagree, the children, and I'm not privy to that. If I agree, well, obviously would know, So I'm very, very particular, because at the end of the day, I wanted to be able even to pat myself on the shoulder and say, well done, Danny, in terms of seeing. And I'm really thankful, really being honest with you, I'm very thankful for the way that God had directed me in terms of bringing up my children, because I'm proud of each one of them, for what they have achieved, But again, the critical factor is being a part of their lives.
Sure. I want to make a statement here to parents. it is compulsory now. And I'm using the word, it's I'm knocking the word optional, and I'm using the word compulsory. You have to feel that inner sense of being compelled to perform what is now called the values clash analysis. And you have just demonstrated that. You're letting your child go and sleep any other place. You have to be sure what is going on. You have to be monitoring that, even if it's by remote control. The values clash analysis, because I was dealing with a parent in Arima, and I would never forget this. The father told me he was so upset with his son, his 19-year-old son. He said, Pastor, you see by the dial there? If my son dead by the dial, I will cross over him, like if he's not my son. I say, be careful how you're saying that. Huh? You might speak that into the child. So be careful what you're saying there. But you tell me what upset him. It was not only the child, but his brother, the child's uncle. He trying to get the child away from smoking marijuana and cocaine. And when he sent the child by the uncle, because the child said he wanted to go there, the uncle was a drug dealer. The brother was the drug dealer. So that highlights the point you're making, Pastor, that we must perform the analysis of who our children spending time with, and are their values the same as our values.
Yeah,
it's called a value clash analysis.
And I want to encourage that. That is so true, Pastor Dottin. Yeah, and I want to encourage the listeners, those who have children or grandchildren, also. Good evening, Anthony. I want to encourage the listeners that sometimes you may see a child not academically inclined, and as Pastor Dutton said, help them to set their goals. You, as a parent, don't try to push, okay, I want my child to be a doctor, I want my child to be a teacher or something. You ask that child what that child wants to be, and encourage that child and help that child to what I want to say, help that child to go in that direction. As you, as the parent, guide that child. Some parents will say, "Oh, the child not being academically inclined, you dunce, you're stupid, you this, you that." No, beware. There's death and life in the power of your tongue. And when you say these things, the devil takes these words from the atmosphere and runs with it. Yeah. You need to try and find out what your child likes. If in this society today, everything is not academical, right? If your child is not academically inclined, your child could probably be interested in a skill. There's plumbing, there's cooking, there's sewing, there's carpentry, joinery, something. Channel the child in that area. Help that child, as Pastor Dutton said, to achieve their goals. Don't just be letting out, negative words on that child. No, that's not the way. That's not the way totally, because everyone is not the same. It's not what you want for the child, because you don't know, as the scripture says, God knew what that child would be before that child even entered the mother's womb. So you have to pray and ask God for guidance and channel that child and see what that child's stronghold is.
I agree with you, because the fulfillment of anybody's life is fulfilling their potential. Bottom line.
Yes, and also.
Go ahead, KEISHA.
Yeah. What I'm saying, because I remember I knew someone who was working. I can't remember the work. Anyhow, the job they were doing before was highly paid, and somehow they were not at ease. They were making money. They were not at ease with their occupation, and they decided to resign and go into teaching, and they felt a greater sense of fulfillment and satisfaction, simply because they were fulfilling their real potential, what they were really called to do by, well, as far as they are concerned, by God,
That's right, because
Patsy
go
King
ahead,
Roach.
Pastor Dutton.
I want to say the Patsy King Roach, you have a model child. That child wants to help you do everything.
Yes,
I mean, you gotta give a big offering next Sunday, you know what I mean?
She's doing a good job.
I really know what this lady putting while we are listening to you all. This excellent.
Yeah, she's doing a good job at parenting, and and she said, from what she said, I don't know how true, but I gather that she's a single mother. She said if she's not feeling well, the son will get on the phone and call the father. It
Wow.
maybe
Wow.
I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, Patsy, correct me. But it comes across as though you're a single mom, but the child's father is involved, and things like that. Reverend Joyce said not only parents, we all need to be closely in communication with teachers as well. Yes, definitely.
Sure.
Definitely. And parents need to check the children's school bags.
Of
Yeah,
course. Of course. I'm a strong believer in that.
yeah, it should be a collaborative approach. I just always say it should be a collaborative approach.
Yep.
And just just to go back a bit, we have to speak positivity into our children and teach them as well to speak positivity into their life, right? So even though they may not be good at something, teach them. So what I will do with my son, from small, every day, as we finish saying our prayers, I will have him say, I am strong, I am brilliant, I am intelligent, I am smart, I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. And that has become
Praise
a
the Lord.
norm to him now. So every time we finish prayer, if something is too difficult or challenging to him, he's gonna see, I will hear him saying it. If he has a like when he had end of term exam, and he will come and say, how was it today? He said, Mommy, it was a bit challenging, but I said I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthened me.
I
So
am
once
affirmations.
yes,
Yes.
when
So you
Yes.
taught him that text. You taught him that text.
yes, I did.
I
Wow.
am
So
affirmations. Yeah.
yeah, so once you speak it into them, and you encourage them to speak it into themselves as well, and because when they go there, they are faced with a lot of negativity, right? And to having to deal with negativity at home as well, that should not be right. So even if somebody tell them, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, you already know that I am smart, I am brilliant, I am intelligent, and nothing you tell me, could make me
Yes.
think any different.
Yes. Instead of parents tilting their child and adding to the insult to injury what they're already experiencing or they're prophesying to your child's life. Yeah.
They have to do that.
That's what parents got to do. Again, death and life is in the power of the tongue.
Yeah, we
Hmm.
need to understand that what we put in there is what is going to come out.
Yep. Because if you keep telling them negative things, they will become what you're speaking. Yeah. So you speak it into being.
Excuse me for a
So,
moment. I didn't get my charger to plug into my device. Just excuse me.
okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have crossed our hour. And if there are no questions from the listening audience, I will just probably ask for some closing remarks and advice from the panel, and we will end our program for today.
Well, I want
So,
to first leave the final word to Sister Keisha, but I want to talk about, in the minute I have, matrimonial mathematics. They says marriage is like a isosceles triangle. God at the top, the apex, and father and mother start off at the base. If you're godless, you're going to try to come close to each other and it wouldn't happen. But if you aim to come closer to God, you'll automatically come closer to each other. In other words, I'm saying God is not an entity you could dispense with. We need God all the time. And God must be at the start, the middle, and at the end. So I want us to stop this issue of raising a set of children in a godless space. Start to teach a child how to pray. A simple prayer. Start him off, and eventually he will catch the vision of the 3-year-old Patsy's child, and he or she will run with it. It was a pleasure being here, and may God bless you.
amen. Amen. Thank you, Pastor Dutton. Anthony Montantine said every child is born with a gift, and the parents have, or I believe it should recognize the child's ability and then place them into the correct place of learning. Definitely. I totally agree. Keisha, any closing remarks and advice, please?
Yes. What I want to share is that as parents, we have to remember the importance of prayer. Pray. Make prayer the center of every single thing that we do. And also being present in the life of our children. Being present. Yes, we may think that, okay, I'm providing them with the basic necessities, food, clothing, safety, but be present. You be there for them. Make them know that you are there. Make them feel that love, that warmth. Because at the end of the day, the danger in ineffective parenting is simply, it may seem like a harsh reality, but our children are left at the mercy of life, predators, childhood, and inexperience.
Definitely. Definitely. Pastor George?
Yeah, well, if I would, the best thing I could say is that if I am to leave any kind of legacy for my children, it has to be the legacy that they would say that my father was indeed a very good example to me. And it's because of his being an exemplar, that I am who I am today. The chip doesn't really fall far from the block.
Sure.
Okay. And my closing remark in this topic is one of the most one of the well-known scriptures in the Bible, Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. All right, that's all I'm going to add to everything that was said and done here today. And I'm just going to thank the listeners. Thank you very much, new listeners, returning listeners. Thank you very much for coming on. What's Patsy saying? And to, if you see our children in the community going wrong, not because it's not our child, let them go astray. Yes, that I agree with that. But then sometimes too, it's very challenging to try to correct the other person's child, or to even go to another parent and make a complaint, because you know how the society is nowadays. And we have Pastor Ingrid Celestine saying, we need to remember children live what they see, not what you say. Be the example of godliness so they can live that. Definitely,
Sure.
I agree, Pastor Celestine. Thank
Yes.
you very much. Pastor Celestine is most of the time on the panel also, but she's a bit busy, so she is just viewing today. And Reverend Joyce Sutton said, follow me as I follow Christ. Good night, all. Yes, I agree, Reverend Joyce. And for those who are here for the first time, please feel free to like, comment, and you can still go back and put comments when the program is over. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. And next week, God's willing, we'll be here again next week, Monday, God's willing, with another topic on another program. So thank you all, listeners. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you, Pastor Daniel. Thank you, Pastor Dottin. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you very much for your time and for coming on. And we had 2 weeks on this topic, and we really touched a wide aspect of it. And I'm really grateful. And I think we answered most of the questions that came in concerning the topic. So thank you all very much. And do have a blessed night, everyone. Have a blessed night.